This is the story of why I twitch a little bit whenever I hear somebody talk about the strength finders or other kind of workplace personality tests. All right, so here's the thing. One of my first big boy jobs, I worked on a small team. I was one of only two creative marketing people, and then there was a staff of a handful of other people that did various tasks around the organization, and it was great. It was a great job. Loved it. There was a period of time, about a year and a half, where I worked with a young woman who was interesting and very talented, very smart, very creative person. But at a point in our team, we all went through the StrengthsFinders test together. Now, this is not a bash on StrengthsFinders. I have nothing against StrengthsFinders. I've taken it many times. I've been through leadership trainings about it. I am not certified in it or anything, but I am very, very familiar with the benefits of understanding and knowing your strengths and weaknesses. Now, that said, I have a little bit of bad taste in my mouth with this because of this. And here's what we do sometimes in the professional world. This woman would be told to do something. So we went through this leadership thing as a group, as a staff, and we learned our strengths and we sharpened our skills and all that. Shortly after this woman would be asked to do something and then would simply either delegate it or ask to be given another task because that doesn't fit within my strengths. And that phrase was thrown around all the time, like, hey, happy to do this. I'm a total team player. I'm here for the vision of the organization. However, that particular item does not fit into my strengths. Even saying it, even telling you this story right now is bringing me back to those conversations, because what would happen is that item would get passed on and another member of the organization would end up doing it. And I mean, I would love to use that as a cop out of, oh, that's not in my strength. Listen, there comes a season. I'm all for honing in on your skills, doing what, you get to the C-suite level, you get higher up in the directors organizations, you own a business. I understand operating your strengths and outsourcing and hiring out things that maybe don't bring you joy or maybe aren't the best use of your time or your skill set. But when you're in the grinding out phase of your career, you're just getting started, you're trying to make a name for yourself, you're trying to build your network, build your skills. There is no such thing as a job that isn't in your strength, as a task that isn't in your strength. And after that, I went through probably about a 5-year period where I would just refuse to take any personality tests. I would avoid people that talked about them. I would avoid conversations about them. Now, since then, I've circled back around. Of course, this was 15 years ago. I've circled back around. I've understood the power of strengths, understanding your strengths. But the other piece of this, and I'm just freeballing here. I don't have an agenda or a script or anything I'm sharing with you. I'm just kind of sharing from the heart. I worked at the Hilton Hotel as one of my very first jobs while I was in ministry school, and I helped open a Hilton Hotel in Southlake, Texas. And there was a mantra in that hotel at the time that if you ever told a supervisor, a manager, anybody above you, if you ever told them that's not my job in response to being asked to do something, it was no questions asked, you're fired on the spot. Now, I had this job before the StrengthsFinder lady job. So that did something to me. I was a server in the hotel. However, I was asked to run room service. I was asked once to valet cars because nobody was there that could valet a stick shift. All the valet drivers didn't know how to drive a stick shift. Guess who drove one every day? So I was asked to valet cars. I didn't get to keep any of the tips from that. However, I was asked to do it and I did it, right? So there's this mindset shift, and it's not even a generational thing because this woman I worked with was in my age bracket. It's a mindset shift of saying, we can do these personality tests, we can do these strength finders and all these things, and they're great. But servant leadership and just being like a killer employee, being somebody who's worth partnering with, who's worth working with, who adds value to the workplace. And I never want to say that's not in my strengths. I'd rather not do that. And may we just embrace things, whether or not they're hard, whether or not they fit exactly in our wheelhouse. And who knows, maybe I'll come back in 10 years, record another video saying, I was an idiot, I never should have said that. Only do things that are in your strength and that bring you joy. And maybe I'll be at a phase in my career where I can do that. Unfortunately, a lot of people tend to lean into this idea of, I'm only going to do things that are in my strengths. And that sometimes that just doesn't work, number one, and sometimes that's not the phase of the career you're in. Food for thought, again, just kind of rambling, just sharing something that popped into my head today as I was thinking about it. Hope it makes you think a little bit. Drop a line in the comments if you've ever worked with somebody like that.